So welcome everybody to the fall conference of the Hypnosis Education Association. I am so excited. I'm going to be hitting admit here like crazy. So welcome everybody. We had a great time at the social last night. I think we had 13 or 14 people there and it was very much fun. We had a lot of fun and got to introduce each other. We won't be able to do that today, but you know what? During the breaks and the lunch break, I wanted to mention, I will leave. This will still be on. If you don't log off completely, you can stay on and meet people and mix and mingle just like we do at the conference. Mm-hmm. And most of the lunch I'll probably be on here. So, you know, there will be different people on at different times. So you can get to know each other that way. Because I think that's part of the fun of this group is getting to know each other. So first thing I want to do is introduce, we forget this sometimes, the board of directors. I'm the president, in case you didn't know that already, and I forgot to change my thing. I go by Patty. I'll change that name on my picture there in a minute. Michael Watson there, I'm sure all of you know him. Michael Watson is our vice president through the rest of this year, and of course a past president, because, you know, that's the way that merry-go-round works sometimes, if you stay enough years, as we have. And we have Susan Watson. Susan, you want to wave because you get your first name up there. Susan is our treasurer, thankfully. We treasure our treasurer. I certainly treasure her because I was it at one point, and I know how much work goes into that. And we also have Jan Risden here, who has been the wonderful lady doing the hip notes and manning the website. Can I say that? Personing the website. She's been taking care of us behind the scenes in more ways than I have time to talk about here. And we have another person who helps us out a lot that should be on later in Ashley Caputo, who does a lot of helping things. Did I forget anybody? Carol, but she's not here. Carol Perrine is our secretary. And that's about all I got to say about that. So, okay, and one of the things I wanted to announce is that Wes Rocky, as far as I know, I haven't heard back from him. As far as I know, he will not be able to present today. He's having internet problems. He was right on the coast. His condo, I guess, survived and he survived, but he's in and out of having power. And he told me last night that he hadn't had any sleep in 2 days. So he was going to have to bow out. I'm hoping we can maybe get him to come next spring or sometime next year, because I really, really enjoy his presentations. So instead of Wes Rocky, I will be filling in to do something along the lines of the medical. And I have a process that I thought if everyone would like to, I might take you all through something that I will make up, of course. Okay. And the next piece of business we have is we have to do nominations. We have to get nominations for our board of directors, for our the two board of directors positions that are up for renewing next year for a 2-year run is the treasurer and the vice president, correct? Yeah. Mm-hmm. The treasurer, I will announce, unless someone really would like to jump in and nominate themselves or someone. Susan Watson has graciously agreed to continue as the treasurer. That's a very important position and a lot of moving parts, and she's done a phenomenal job. And so Susan definitely, unless there's some kind of unusual circumstance, is going to be our treasurer for another 2 years, yes? When we do the voting, which will be tomorrow morning, I believe is the voting. Yeah. Sunday morning, we do the actual voting for those two positions. We have nominations open now for the vice president and Michael Watson.
I would like to nominate Ashley Caputo for vice president.
Ashley Caputo. Okay. And she isn't here right now, but we will certainly run that by her. I'm sure it's already been probably brought up to her. So Ashley Caputo, as I said, she's been in.
Pardon for interrupting. We did discuss it with her, and she is a willing candidate.
Wonderful. So for those of you, like I said, she's been involved with the group for several years now, many years now. And I think it's a lovely nomination. Anyway, if anyone else is interested in putting your hat in the ring for vice president of this group, we would love to have you let us know right now so that we can bring your name up tomorrow morning when we do the voting. Anyone else that wants to give it a shot? It's so quiet. I guess
It's
that
a ring
means
full of hats.
it's, yeah, a ring full of hats. Okay, well, thank you for that. And are there any other announcements that anyone can think of? Michael, Jan, Susan, anything?
Are you still looking for someone to write hip notes?
To write hip notes. We do need people that are technologically adept to help us with hip notes, which is our newsletter and the website. Is that correct as well?
The newsletter's easy. You just get all the info from Patty and you just plug it in. We have a template and it's
plug it in.
Easy to go.
So if anybody has expertise in that area, I've been asking, and I would certainly invite you to get involved with this group. It is a beautiful group. And again, for those of you who may not know, it is a not-for-profit corporation, Florida-based corporation. And so we are all volunteers here. And, you know, there's some attention to be paid for the things that we do, sometimes more than others. You know, attention needed for this. It took a little extra that we weren't expecting at the last minute, but it's well worth it. And just the people alone, just interacting with these people and being involved with this group, the benefits and the value far outweighs any time and effort that you would put into it. Because you know what? It's a beautiful group. So I'm so happy to see some new faces today. And if there aren't any other announcements, I was going to go ahead and any other announcements? No. Okay. I want to welcome everybody then, and we're going to move right into Art. Yeah, there he is. Okay. If it's all right with you, Art, I'm going to jump right into introduce you at this point.
Okay. Would you allow me to share a screen with me so I can? Michael has insisted that I use PowerPoint, so I do have some PowerPoint.
I will definitely make it so you can share screen.
Okay, thank you.
Allow, where is it? I don't know.
Art, do you want us to mute or do you want us to talk?
No, I'd say talk and make it interactive. If you have questions and stuff, anytime we can make a discussion out of it. Yeah.
And Art, since we had a couple minutes that I wanted to give you, I did want to give you the opportunity to introduce your students who were originally going to be with you on stage in Orlando. And
absolutely,
you like to do that now?
That's all part of my program, in fact. So, how about that?
And for those of you who don't know, if you want to put the presenter's view, you can click on within your box. There's a little drop-down list where you can have the presenter's view, which means you would have only Art on screen, or if you want the gallery view, just so you know that.
Yeah, and I have gallery,
okay.
So I can see as many people as possible on that right-hand bar there.
Okay, Art, I'm going to introduce you first, though, because you know what? I want to say a few things about Art. He has an MBA, he is a PhD, and he calls himself the head coach. I love that. He has U Solutions is his company. And let's see here. He's been working successfully with groups and individuals as a coach, an advisor, a mentor for over 50 years, helping them to achieve more than they thought possible. First in the U.S. Air Force, then with the DuPont Company, and more recently with Canbay, is it Canbay? A Chicago-based financial services information technology consultant company purchased by Capgemini, looks like. Art is devoted to bringing new approaches and discoveries about how to succeed in individuals, families, and businesses. Art's founder of U Solutions, as I said, LLC. The U stands for unconscious, where all great solutions are located. Which he moved to Chicago, from Chicago to Sarasota, and his athletic clients will give him a referral. Will not give him a referral. Will not give him a referral. Oh, that's right. Why would they? They don't want that competition to have that big secret. So welcome, Art. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I'd like to start with an apology for the new topic. And you'll hear a little bit more about what we had planned from Patsy and Odette. but we didn't, or I didn't think it would lend itself to a Zoom meeting. It was very interactive, and so we'd love to request time to do that at another meeting. So that's to be, it's just some new ways of doing training and certification of hypnosis and hypnotherapists, and so we're really excited about it. So I want to apologize too that Bart Emrich was originally going to facilitate this, and I'm kind of a substitute, and I'm sure you'll see him again at another time. So my guests, Odette Fay and Patsy Savari, are two students that are participants in this new methodology for certification. And so I'd like to just give them a chance to say hello and introduce themselves, and maybe a little teaser about the program we were going to do. So Odette or Patsy, if you want to jump in.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I got my phone working somehow. Well, welcome. I'm so excited to be here, though it would have been more exciting in Florida. I had the privilege of being introduced to art through our mutual friend Patsy, and we have been actively involved with getting our hypnosis and actually NLP certification. And what we were going to be talking about today was really something called sort of the reverse classroom, learn, teach, learn, third person teaching, where students play an active role in creating curriculum and learning. It's something like what you hear about from Oxford or Cambridge with the Socratic method. You know, and Art obviously is this wealth of knowledge, so he never even needs to look at notes because he knows all of it and can talk to it. So we're really excited to be able to present this and to get our certifications in this very new and innovative way. And I am back in Phoenix now because I was worried about the weather and, you know, getting stuck and not being able to get back into the office on Monday. So with that, I will turn it over to Patsy.
Thanks, Odette. Yeah, I'm Patsy Savari, and I've known Art for a very long time, and especially know his wife. We've been friends for a long time. And when Odette and I were talking about how much fun it would be to study hypnosis, the first person who came to mind was Art, and he was gracious enough to meet with us on many occasions, usually on Zoom, because we started learning during the COVID outbreak. And so we had to figure out a new way to become certified and learn using a technology platform that wasn't typical for hypnosis. And that drove us to look at other ways to learn. And Odette and I both have a deep training and development background. And so Art let us insert ourselves in the learning design. And it's really throughout this year and a half, we've had a great experience figuring out what's involved in certification. You know, we've looked at many models. We looked at how does one become a school. Art had been a school, and now his school has been re-entered, I guess, as a teaching school. And then how to actually work with clients in the process of hypnosis. And we've learned a great deal about, you know, using our unconscious to work effectively together. So this is a whole adventure for me, and I'm very excited to be part of this group.
Great. Well, welcome to both of you again. I'm really so proud of you, and I can't wait to have the opportunity to present with you. It's a work of all three of us put this together, and we're just really proud of it and really excited about it. So to be continued, we'll do that. Mm-hmm. So on to today's topic of neuro-linguistic programming. I wonder, I don't know the experience is of this group with NLP. So if you're an experienced practitioner, please join in anytime. If you don't even know what NLP stands for, then we'll catch you up real quick on what that is. So the NLP, the word neuro, comes from our five senses. The linguistic is that we take our raw sensory data from those five senses and we put words on it, and we use language to help us understand what we think and also to communicate that to other people. So we communicate to ourselves and other people with language, and then programming is how we organize that in order to produce behavior that produces results. So linguistically, NLP is, some people have said it's an experience that the words not only describe the world we live in, but they determine it. And I've got some other slides later on that'll show that in more detail. Bandler, one of the co-founders, said it's an attitude and a methodology that leaves behind a trail of techniques, which is wonderful language, but doesn't really tell you a whole lot about what it is. I've studied a lot with Tad James, and that was his definition of what NLP is. So almost everybody that's involved with NLP, if you say, well, what is it? They'll give you a definition and it won't be the same as anybody else's. So that's pretty wide thing. So why use NLP? So one is make it easier for people to do what they want to do. Another one is make it easier for somebody to do what you want them to do. That's kind of the magic part of it to me. To set and achieve goals and how to alter a limiting belief or a limiting decision that may be holding people back. So that's just some of the uses of. Anybody else got anything you want to add of why would you use NLP? If so, just chime in anytime. Ethical concerns. Is NLP and hypnosis manipulative? Loaded word. Short answer, yes, it is. But I'd like to qualify that a little bit. The longer answer is, if it weren't, it wouldn't be worth learning. It wouldn't be worth spending the time with it. But it's not manipulative in the sense of getting somebody to do something they don't want to do, but it's being a manipulative of language and ideas and thought processes and things, just like a surgeon's a master of their field and a physical therapist is a master of theirs. So if you went to a surgeon for, you were getting scheduled for surgery and they said, boy, I'm so glad you came to me because I'm really not good at handling these instruments. You know, they keep slipping out of my hands and everything, you know, you'd say, I want a master manipulator here. I don't want it. Or a physical therapist that said, boy, I just keep breaking people's bones when they come in here. And so this is the idea of being very comfortable with human behavior and with language and being able to use it in a very particular way that a non-NLP trained person wouldn't probably even be aware of. Fundamental premise of NLP is this whole idea that people who are different from us, the more different they are, usually the more uncomfortable we are with them, because they're unpredictable, we don't know what to expect. And so the more people are like us, then the more comfortable we are. And when they're comfortable with us, they'll respond more quickly to our suggestions, which is good in hypnosis. Hypnosis and NLP to me are kind of first cousins. It's hard for me sometimes to get the distinction between the two, because some people said, well, NLP is just hypnosis without trance. And I'm thinking, no, some of the stuff we do in NLP is pretty trancy to me. So I don't know how to distinguish sometimes. But so I use an example when I go to register at a hotel. I always try to establish rapport very quickly with whoever the check-in person is, because I found out that really helps out a whole lot. And say, well, you know, we're out of rooms that you wanted and we got another one, and or we're near the elevator and it makes too much noise, so they're just more responsive to things that we might need or changes we might want to make. So the way people know about you is how do you look? So they're using visual information. How do you sound? They're using auditory information to see, are you like me? Are you different from me? So I go in to check at a hotel and there's a 6-foot blonde Amazon there with blue eyes, and I'm supposed to be like her, well, guess what? NLP gives me a way to do that, even though physically we're very different. And she may have an accent from Sweden or something that I don't have. And so I've got to, linguistically, I've got to figure out a way to match and get rapport. So all possible with NLP. Pretty cool stuff. One of the things in order to be good at NLP is we have to have excellent sensory acuity. So that's the ability to make highly refined observations. And the key is the observation is without any interpretation. It's just when you look at something, what do you see? Keeping it in the visual thing. So for example, let's calibrate. Everybody know who that is? Remember Steve Irwin, the Australian guy that used to do the animal stuff? That's a picture of Steve. He was very popular at the time that I first started doing this. So I used his picture as a acuity calibration tool. So here's another picture of Steve. So like for you as a group, compare and contrast those two pictures for me. Just call out things that you see that are different from one picture to the other picture.
His mouth.
The mouth, and what is it about the mouth?
Can you hear me, Art?
Now I can.
Okay. The difference is one he's smiling and the other he's got like a, oh, wow, kind of look on his mouth.
Okay. Looking at the left-hand picture only, does he have any teeth?
Right.
Yes.
On the right-hand picture, does he have any teeth?
No.
No.
We don't know. We can't see him, Does he have a left ear?
Don't
Yes.
know.
Mm,
No.
A little bit of it maybe on the left-hand picture showing a little bit, but on the right-hand picture, you'd have to say, I don't know, maybe he's like Van Gogh. Maybe he doesn't have an ear over there at all. So a lot of people, when they first start NLP, they'll say, oh, the right-hand picture, he's surprised. That's an interpretation. You can't see surprise. You can see his eyebrows maybe are up and his eyes are open wide, and you could report those with sensory acuity, but you can't say anything about how he feels. The left hand, oh, he's real happy. Well, you don't know whether he's happy or not. That may be this fake grin he puts on, and inside he may be really bad. So the whole idea is you have to learn how to be an effective observer of behavior without putting any interpretation on it all. So one of the differences, there was a time that body language was very popular topic. And they would say, well, this means that, and this means that. And so if you're talking to somebody and they cross their arms like that, that means they're closed, they're not listening, they're not buying what you're saying. And that was an appropriate body language interpretation. In NLP, we just say, person's arms are folded. We have no idea what that, maybe they're cold, or maybe they don't know what to do with their arms, and that's a comfortable way for them to sit or stand or whatever. So it's the difference between interpretation and just observation and reporting. Very important skill that I'd ask you to work on. Now, one of the things I'm going to recommend as we go through reviewing what NLP is all about is that it's really great if you'll keep it fun. instead of a serious kind of a study. It's just a fun, just like you're playing. And it's very important to practice to the point where you do these things without having to think about them. They just become instinctive, automatic behaviors that you have and things that you can do and the ways you interpret things. And so I use TV a lot. I practice with people. I'll say, well, I just want to practice sensory acuity and see if I can report what I see on the TV. Sometimes I'll turn the sound off and then say, what do I see? And then other times I'll turn the sound back on. Unknown caller. And excuse me, I've got to do some muting here with this. Don't want people calling in. So, okay. So anyway, the idea is to have a turn the sound up and then close my eyes and see if I can relate to just hearing what people are saying. Can I make observations about that? This person's speaking slowly. This person's speaking really loudly. This person's got an accent. This person must be, having a hard time because they're stuttering, for example. So anyway, it's just a way that you can do a lot of practicing, even if you don't have people. Now, whenever you're out in a crowd or out in a restaurant or whatever, just use the people sitting around you to practice on. Just you can from all the way across the room, you can do a lot of this observation, and to the point where you can really comfortably do some calibration and notice what's different about people that you see. So there's a communications model in NLP that I'd like to present. It explains a whole lot and help us get into the topic. So we got a person and there are events going on in that external reality. We win something, for example. We're dating or we're learning something. And the way we know that any of those events are going on is that the data comes into us through our five senses. So we have visual, auditory with our ears, kinesthetic, either tactile kinesthetic or heart as feelings, emotional. Olfactory is how does it smell, and gustatory, how does it taste. So that's where we get our data from. And it comes in, some of the research I've seen, about 2 million bits of data per second coming into our system. Well, guess what? We can't handle that. That would be a brain fry if we had to deal with all that. So we do 3 processes that go on all the time with communication. And it's the same 3 processes that AAA would do if you go in and you ask them for triptychs, you're going to go on a trip, and that we used to use those a lot. They would delete a lot of that information off of the map of reality because we can't deal with that. We don't need that much information on a map. We just want certain things that are useful to us. We do that with information that comes in all the time. We delete a lot of it. Another thing we do, not on purpose, but it gets distorted. We think we saw something, we think we heard something, we're not really sure. And so we change it a little bit of what gets in. And then the last one is we generalize. So you walk into a room and you look around and you see a lot of different chairs in the room. You've never seen them before, but you know instantly that it's a chair because you have a generalized idea of what a chair is in your mind, and you can put lots of things in it. This is a chair, this is not a chair, this is a table, this is a whatever. And it's because we have generalized maps that we do. Well, out of those 3 processes, we now produce what's called our internal map. You've heard it, maybe if you studied NLP, the map is not the territory. And so this map that we build has only got 200 bits of data per second. So I don't know what the percentage is of 200 over 2 million, but what it amounts to is that we don't ever know what reality is because we're just sampling it at a tiny fraction of what's really out there. So we have to have some strategy for how do I know which 200 bits of data do I grab out of that 2 million bit data stream that's changing every second. And I'm grabbing a second, and another second I'm grabbing 200, another second I'm grabbing 200. And we keep doing that, and we create our little internal map of the external reality that's going on out there. Now, one of the things that happens is that we develop feelings about that. We have an emotional state about it. We're happy, we're sad, we're frustrated, we're angry, we're motivated, we're inspired, we're whatever it is, based on the information we're getting. And then from that state, we also develop some kind of a body language, the physiology that we have. The reason this is important to us in NLP is that these three things are constantly in touch with each other, trying to stay coordinated. So if I have a state of I'm a loser, I'm no good, I'm rotten, I'm just a horrible person, that's going to show up in our body language. And you can see it. You can see a person's shoulders are hunched forward, their head's down, they look kind of shriveled up, they're not taking up very much room. And this is a work from Amy Cuddy, who found out about, you know, our body language tells how confident we are and how assertive we generally are. So if you develop the victim physiology, it's all kind of crunched in. And then if you change your state and you're feeling excited and I'm a winner, I can do this and everything, our energy level changes and that comes out in our physiology. So we might see more movement in the person. We might see a different facial expression, things like that. So the fact that these three are in touch with each other all the time, there has to be a way for us to know what 200 bits of data do we grab. Well, we use our physiology and state to tell us, get stuff that matches those. You know, we want confirmation, we want validation. And so I'll go, so the world you live in, when you're feeling like a victim and you're really discouraged and you're just feeling worthless, that causes you to pick out 200 bits of data that support that. That's your conclusion, but we're always looking for support. So you get an internal representation that backs that up. All of a sudden you change. Now the instructions of what to pick get changed. And so you can help a client literally shift the world they live in by working on physiology and state, because that'll help them shift what data they draw out of that. So out of that then comes our behavior, of course, and we're winning, so we celebrate, we're dating, we remember our first kiss or second or third or whatever, you know, and we learn something, we learn how to drive a car, so we go out and we can actually do things. So all that's going on all day long, every second. So is it any wonder that we're tired at the end of the day? Because we've been doing a lot of work just by interpreting and living in the reality that we live in, which we've created by what we selected out of that big data thing. So we don't ever live in reality, we live in our map. And that's why we have to keep saying, yeah, but that map is not the territory. So sometimes we have to teach people how to enrich their map or change their map, because it's leading them to a very bad place that they don't really want to be. So people come to us as practitioners because they want to change something about themselves from the way it is to some other way. So we can now say, well, what I need to do then is I need to help them change their internal representation, that map that they've got. I can help them build a new one, or I need to help them change their state or their feelings, or I need to help them change their physiology, their body language. Now, obviously, physiology is the easiest one to say, hey, your shoulders are all slumped down and your head's down and you know, and so straighten your back up and lift your head up and put a smile on your face. We can do those pretty quickly, and people can respond to that instruction. And immediately when they do that, it starts changing their state, which also changes their internal map. So we got three access points, I guess, to ourselves and to all of our clients through these three control knobs, I guess, that have a whole lot to do with the world we live in and how we feel about it, and it shows up in the way we look. So the physiology, the body language we work with in NLP is posture and gesture and facial expressions, for examples that there are others, and we'll look at them. But the point is, I guess, for us to know is our unconscious mind is watching everything that we do and everything other people do, and it hears everything that we think, and it hears everything that is said to us or what's on the TV or the radio or whatever. That unconscious mind is just soaking all that stuff in. It's information. It's building a big database that we can then draw from. So we just need to be aware that the unconscious is, when we go to sleep, it's the conscious mind that goes to sleep. The unconscious stays awake all the time. It'll always be on. Well, there'll be one time, I guess, the big one, when it turns off and we won't be here anymore. But all the while we're here, it's operating. And so that's something that we just need to keep in the back of our awareness, that unconscious is always with us. State, we know what physiology is, body language. State is the ongoing mental and physical conditions from which a person behaves. That's how they feel. And it affects their whole outlook on life. It comes from state. So how do you find out, a client comes in, how do you find out what their state is? Anybody?
Ask questions.
Ask them, absolutely. Now, the interesting thing about the answer you get is what? Is that the truth?
It's filtered.
It's filtered, right? Because I've had clients say, there are going to be questions you ask me that I'm going to say, I prefer not to answer that. I don't know you well enough. I don't know if I can trust you. And there's some things that are pretty sensitive. And so I say, look, I'm a process person, not a content person. If I ask you a content question or a process question and you don't want to answer it, just say, I'd prefer not to answer it. That'll be perfectly fine with me. My feelings will be hurt, but I'll get over it, you know. And so just feel free to keep your sensitive aspects of yourself to yourself until you feel comfortable enough to share them with me. And if you never do, then we can still do some fantastic work together. But it's real helpful. If somebody's always got a smile on their face, I want to know what their state is, because they've got a body language that may not match their state at all. And if they're willing to tell me that, I've got some real helpful clues, some insights into what's going on with them. So I ask and just observe, you know, use your sensory acuity and watch the physiology, because as the physiology changes, it usually means there's a state change related to that, you know, and that'll give you another clue. Let's stop and do a little quickie thing. Is this okay with everybody? Am I going way too fundamental, or is this all right? I'm seeing some head shakes.
It's working for me.
Yep.
Okay, all right, we'll keep going. I just don't want to bore you with, oh, I knew that already. What are you trying to do here?
It's always new and different, though.
Oh, good. Okay. So the internal representation, that's our map of reality. And one of the things that's interesting is that we have something called a reticular activating system. It's a little knob right at the top of the spinal cord, base of the brain. And it is watching and listening all the time. And it works like a radio. It's got two knobs on it, a tuning knob and a volume knob. And it's just scanning all the time. And it's looking for information in that big data stream that supports and confirms our beliefs, our decisions, our goals, our judgments, our opinions, our attitude, everything about it. It's looking for, you have certain ways that you think things are, and I'm going to go into that big data stream, and anything that says, yes, you're right, I'm going to pull that out, and that's going to make you feel good. When it finds stuff like that, number one, if it's threatening, that takes priority. That's a priority interrupt, and it'll grab that first. And it turns the volume up on it. It may be the visual volume, it'll just pop to you. It may be the auditory volume, it'll almost be like the sound is louder. Or you feel a kinesthetic, you feel, or you smell, or you taste something from it. Or if it's valuable to you, then it'll pop that stuff. And if it's not particularly useful to you, it just turns that volume down. And again, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, if they're not threatening or valuable to you at that moment. So if you wonder why there's an accident and the police come in and they interview 5 people and say, what did you see? Get 5 different stories, you know, descriptions of it. You'd think, well, these people weren't even looking at the same accident. It's because things that supported their beliefs or their opinions about that got turned up and just drowned out the stuff that wasn't valuable or didn't look like it was important. It got turned down so much that they just deleted, distorted, generalized it, and it just went away. They didn't even have a good representation of it anymore. So that's operating all the time. I use an example back in the day. I don't remember what the year was, but when Volkswagen Beetles first came out, they cost $1,999.
Wow.
Orange, and I bought one, and I looked at different cars and thought I'm going to buy an orange Beetle. I drove out of the dealership, and I look out, and there are orange Beetles all over the place. At almost every place I look, there's another. Well, they were there all the time, but they were not particularly useful or valuable or pertinent. And now all of a sudden, I bought one. It must have been, as the car I chose, it must be important to me. So RAS, Reticular Activating System, says, look, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. And it'll do that for you. So one of the reasons that we're goal-oriented therapists is as soon as somebody's got a goal, the RAS is going to turn on and look for things that'll be helpful for you to achieve that success with that goal. Before that, the stuff is already there, but it's in that 20 million, and we had no particular reason to select it until we made a decision. We made a choice of, I want this and not that. When RAS goes to work and helps you see things, hear things that might be useful to you. And it just presents them to your conscious mind, and your conscious mind says, well, thank you very much. That, I don't, you know, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. And, oh, there's an idea. That's really good. And I wouldn't have seen that if you hadn't, you know, popped that out for me. So RAS is at work all the time. Always has been. We're just now finding out about it and how it works and when it works. So as NLP practitioners or hypnotists, we can use that very productively.
Art, can I share a story about that?
Yes, please.
So when I was teaching basic writing at St. Petersburg College, this is a pre-Comp 1 class, I'm teaching the semicolon and what it does. And this woman in the class says, I've never seen a semicolon before. Well, I would say 3 weeks later, she came in and she said, they're everywhere. I didn't know about this system, but I said, it showed me something that, you know, it's like, okay, what's going on? What's happening with the brain? So I loved hearing. Thank you for that. That was perfect.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. I hope some of these will give you these aha. Oh, that's what was going on back there. I didn't know what it was exactly. So one of the things about NLP, I think, that really supports hypnosis very well is this notion about rapport. Back in the day when I was first, going to school, they said, if you want to be a good communicator, you gotta have good rapport with the audience. And then they'd move on. They never told you what it was, how to get it, how to know whether you got it, how to keep it, how to get it back if you lose it. All that was just, boy, get that rapport and you'll be a good speaker. But trust me, you got to have rapport. Well, NLP comes along and says what it is an unconscious connection between two people, not conscious, but unconscious. It's a condition that once you have it, the other person will accept your suggestions, your ideas, your opinions much less critically. So it kind of bypasses the critical function and says, we're so much alike, we don't need to worry about that. We can share, we can, be very comfortable with that. It's a process for matching and mirroring another person's behaviors, and that's how you get the rapport, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And the ability to elicit desired responses, either desires that the client has or desires that you have. So that's what it is. And the way we have access to building rapport is we look at physiology, people's facial expressions, breathing. That's a really powerful one because most people are not consciously aware of their breath. Voice qualities, 4 of them particular that we use. How loud or soft do they talk? How fast or slow? What's the pitch? Is it a high pitch or a low pitch, the tone? And then the timbre is, I guess I use the Godfather, that says, I got a deal for you here, I got a proposal. And I'm gonna make a deal you can't refuse. So that's a timbre, is that scratchiness, I guess. The predicates that people use, they'll use predicates in one or more of these different modalities. So visual predicates, oh, I see what you mean. Auditory, oh, I hear what you're saying. Or that feels good to me with kinesthetic, or that stinks, the olfactory, or like that got a, that's sweet, that's an old salty dog or something, And then keywords that people use, phrases, particular repetitions. If you're talking to somebody and there's something that they repeat, you want to make sure that you use that same thing and repeat it back to them. Because to them, that's the way their brain works. They're used to hearing that. If somebody says, yeah, that's right, that's right. At some point, you need to say, yeah, that's right, that's right. Kind of the same way they did. And that is very meaningful to them. Oh, this person talks like I do. We must be kind of simpatico some way. That's really good. So 4 indicators that you are getting rapport is that you may notice that you have a little fluttery feeling in your stomach. The rapport is starting to build, or you might notice that you blush or the other person blushes a little bit. Once that connection is made, it's kind of an instantaneous response and your system says, whoa, we're connecting here. It might be the other person will say something to you like, I know you from somewhere. Where did we go to the same school, or what sign are you? They feel the connection, but they just met you and there's no reason for them to feel that close, and it's just a closeness that is palpable. It's they can feel it and they can't explain it. And so they might start asking questions. But the key one is that you notice that they're going to follow your lead. And we'll talk about leading, what a lead is. But that's a way that you know that you really do have rapport with somebody. So any of these might be at work. The way we establish rapport, we do something called pacing, which is matching or mirroring. Is the process to gain rapport. So we use our body as a giant biofeedback mechanism so that they can see and hear things that are comfortable and familiar for them. So both verbal and nonverbal ways that we can match what they're doing. Leading is how you check to see if you've got rapport, is generating a change in your behavior to see if they'll change their behavior and match what you're doing. So you're just a conscious thing that, okay, now I'm going to mismatch you to see if you'll shift your behavior and match me. And that's the way you lead. And that's a good way to check to see if you have rapport or not. Interesting phrase in NLP, you cannot not communicate, because you always have a physiology. You can't do away with it unless you turn off the light or walk in another room or something. And your voice is going to be saying a lot more than the words that you use. It's going to be communicating. So if you're pacing somebody, you don't want to do it so quickly that they feel like you're copying them. So here's what can happen. If you're doing a really good job of establishing rapport, it means you're establishing an unconscious relationship. That is a relationship that the person is not aware of consciously. Well, if they become conscious of it, they'll say something like, why do you keep copying me? You know, that copycat thing that we're so angry when we were young kids. We didn't like people copying us. So that just means you're not doing it well enough, because what you were doing reached their level of conscious awareness, and now it's an insult rather than a compliment. The unconscious is highly complimented when you do this. So you can tone down the intensity. So I had a guy I was talking to one time, and a lot of fishermen here in Florida, he said, I caught a fish that was that big. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. And so a little bit later I said, you were telling me about that fish you caught. It was that big, you know? So I reproduced his hand motion, his words. It was big, a big fish like that. But I didn't do it right. If he said the fish was that big, if I held my hand right up at that time, it would have been sort of out of place. So you wait a little bit, you delay it. Now he may have said, I caught a fish this big. I don't have to do exactly. I can say, how big was that fish? And I could do like that, you know, and say, well, most of my fish are only about that big, but I measure them between the eyes, you know, so and make a joke out of it. But you're using your arms or your hands or fingers or something to reproduce a physical behavior, and that establishes a bond between you. That, oh, this person kind of, you know, who is it? The Italians that are supposed to be so expressive now? If you're talking to an Italian, you better start waving your hands at some point, because that's what they're used to. It's comfortable for them. And you can use misdirection. For example, if I'm establishing rapport with an audience, I don't want to look at somebody and immediately do what they're doing. So somebody may be leaning over like this, and the next person sitting to them, next to them, is straight up, and the person next to them is leaning over the other way. So I'll look at them and I'll notice, okay, this person is leaning over like that, and I'll just file that away, and I'll just be talking. And when I'm talking and looking in another direction, I'll just lean over a little bit like that. So it's out of time phase enough that they don't realize that I'm really copying their behavior, but I waited long enough that I was looking somewhere else. They don't realize. So I'm always filing away things that I see, and I don't do it until I'm looking in another direction. I wait a little bit, and then they have no idea that what I am doing related to them, because I'm already on to somebody else or something. So good things to know about when you're pacing somebody else's behavior. If you do any of these, this is a way to lose rapport. Now, sometimes you might want to do this on purpose. You don't want to have rapport with everybody that you meet. It's a choice that you make. As a practitioner, you get to decide whether you want to have rapport or not. So if you do these, they'll help break rapport. Now, if you didn't realize what was happening, that you wanted rapport, but you were doing these things, physiologically, you're not helping yourself at all. You're really getting in your own way if you do any of these things. Because they tend to say, I'm not interested in what you're saying or doing. I'm not paying attention to you. I've got other things on my mind, and you're not it. Visually, you can mismatch that way. Auditorially, you can mismatch these. If you do any of these things, if these are habitual behaviors you have, you're breaking rapport with somebody by doing them. So just be careful that there are ways to match, and there are also ways to mismatch. So we
Art,
want to be
Art.
sure we're doing it. Yes.
I had a quick question on that.
Yes.
So the thing about the cell phone is I have a lot of clients that are like, I'm like, could you please turn off your phone? But they have Apple Watches or whatever. And so when those things start buzzing, they start looking at them. And my understanding is that they did a study that if you're on a cell phone, people don't like you as much, even if they see the cell phone. It's like it's a distraction. So I guess my question would be, what do you do in that case when you have clients that are on their cell phones?
Yeah, I just say, you know, go on what is it called, airplane mode. You can leave your phone on so that, you know, you're not turned off altogether, but it's not going to ring and interrupt us and everything. And I have people that say, I have to have it on. And I say, well, then I can't work with you. I really pretty nutty about that kind of interruption. I think if this is important enough, what you're doing, then you ought to be able to cut us some slack and make some time in your schedule where you don't have to be on that phone. So it all depends on how strong you feel about it, I guess. But I just use airplane mode, and that way, okay, good. My phone's on. I can look down later on, you know, at a break or something and see who's called and stuff, but it's not going to ring and interrupt the flow of what we're doing. Does that get at your question? Okay.
Yes, it does actually. But I think that the thing that really pulls people away are the Apple Watches. I don't know if they can put those on air. I'm just not technologically savvy that way, but
I'm
you know,
not
their
either.
watch will go off.
Have we got an Apple Watch expert in the group here that can tell us? Because I don't know either. Is that a way to turn it off or turn it down or anything?
Yes,
No.
they can definitely it's just like your phone. They can just go in and turn it on to airplane mode by touching their apps. And,
Oh, okay. You can put a watch on airplane too, huh?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
That's good to know. Thank you.
And
And
I was going to
Art.
say,
ahead.
I was just going to say that at the beginning, I always leave my phone on the desk so that when people come in, I go, oh, I'm going to turn my phone off now. You might do the same thing.
Good idea. Yeah. Model the desired behavior there so that they can see your.
Hey, Art, can I
exactly
ask
right.
you a question?
Sure.
So, you know, in terms of, we haven't gotten to it yet, but like eye movement, when I'm like remembering or thinking, so I'm talking to somebody, I did it this weekend or earlier. I'm off to the right side and I'm like processing information and remembering it. So it's not that I'm not paying attention to the person. It's just like I'm thinking and, you know, I'm not even sure, like I became aware of it, but that is a really bad tendency I have. So how do you, if that is how you process information, how do you not do that so you can maintain that rapport?
Yeah. Gray, I'm glad you asked it. I didn't put the eye movement thing in. I thought it was getting a little bit too long, too much information for people. And so my understanding is that those movements that you're describing are flash movements. Now, if you looked up to the right or the left and you stayed up there the whole, you know, for a long period of time, I would say, why don't you come back to this conversation? Something else is going on there, and it's not part of what we're doing here. But if you just flick your eyes up to the left or the right or down to the, you know, or to the one ear or the other ear or whatever, that's kind of a flash movement, and it shouldn't distract anybody. It's only if you just get stuck there and don't ever come back, that would be distracting. Does that help? Or do you tend to get there and stay for a while?
I think I stay there for a while, but I'm also like, even as I'm talking to you, you can't see it. My eyes are like upper right. And I think I'm like processing and thinking about it, but I'm with you. So I'm going to have to practice that.
Yeah, if you can practice shortening that eye movement part of it, because in a lot of cultures, and American culture is one of them, looking at somebody while you're talking to them is very important. If you're always looking away or looking off in another direction or never, in body language, it says if you can't look somebody in the eye that you're lying. Only if you're telling the truth can you look somebody in the eye. Well, that's a bunch of crap, really. You can lie and look right straight. Politicians do that all the time. They'll look right at you and lie to you. But culturally, in Japan, where I spent many, many years of my life, it's almost impolite to look somebody in the eye. They call it giving somebody the white eye. It's almost like you're angry with them or something. So you have to know culturally what it's all about. But in our culture, keeping eye contact is a pretty strong evidence that, yeah, we're communicating, we're on the same wavelength, and we're really understanding each other. And so, just something that you can be aware of, and notice that I better not stay here too long, or they'll feel like I left them somehow,
May I
Art-
offer a comment?
Good question. Yeah.
You might consider telling them exactly what you just said. I'm processing what you're telling me.
Great idea. Yeah, let them know. That's how I do it.
Oh, I'm processing. I'm thinking about what you're saying. So continue.
Yeah.
Okay, Art, I'm going to interrupt you, but it's not because I don't value highly and I'm not interested in everything you're saying. But we're a little bit past break time. We're about 5 minutes past, so don't want everybody to get antsy and need a break and not get one. So